Cathrell had watched humanity for 200 years. He had seen their wars and their peace. He had seen them build great cities and destroy them. He had seen them love and hate with equal passion. But in all his years of observation, he had never seen anything like this. The old Bethany. Scientist stood before the massive viewing screen on the Galactic Observation Station. His 4 eyes moved rapidly across dozens of feeds from Earth. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Humans were running, not just some of them. Not just in one place. Across every continent, in every city, in every small town and village, humans had stopped whatever they were doing. They had left their jobs, their homes, their vehicles, stuck in the middle of roads. And they were running. Senior observer, a young Bethany named Tolvek, said, his voice shaking. "What is happening down there?" Cathrell did not answer. He could not answer. He had no explanation for what he was seeing. The observation station had been orbiting Earth for 300 years. 12 different alien species worked together to watch humanity from a safe distance. They called themselves the Coalition. And they had one simple rule about Earth. Observe but never contact. Humanity was too dangerous for contact. Cathrell remembered the debates from long ago. Some Coalition members had wanted to welcome humanity into the galactic community. They pointed to human art, music, and their capacity for love. But others showed different evidence. They showed the wars, the weapons, the way humans refused to die even when death was certain. The Coalition had learned about something called persistence hunting. Long ago, before humans built cities, they would hunt animals not by being faster or stronger. They would simply follow their prey. They would walk and run after an animal for hours, sometimes days, until the creature collapsed from exhaustion. The animal would run fast and rest, run fast and rest. But the humans never stopped. They just kept coming. This information had terrified the Coalition. What kind of species evolved to be an unstoppable pursuer? Senior observer, another voice called out. This one belonged to Admiral Scythen, a tall insectoid creature who commanded the station's defense forces. I need a report. Why have the humans stopped their normal activities? Cathrell turned to face the Admiral. I do not know. They are running, but I cannot determine why. Running from what? Cathrell looked back at the screens. That was the strange part. The humans were not running away from anything. They were running toward something. Each person seemed to have a destination. Stadiums, city centers, open fields, parks. They were gathering in specific locations with clear purpose. They are not running from something, Cathrell said slowly. They are organizing. Admiral Scythen moved closer to the screens. Her compound eyes reflected the images of millions of humans in motion. Organizing for what? Before anyone could answer, an alarm sounded throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Every alien in the observation room froze with fear. What is that? Tolvex asked. A new screen activated, showing a view of deep space beyond the solar system. Something was coming. The sensors showed an energy signature larger than anything the Coalition had ever recorded. It stretched across millions of kilometers and moved with terrible purpose toward Earth. Cathrell felt his blood turn cold. He recognized the signature from ancient Coalition records. Records that spoke of death and destruction on an unimaginable scale. The Hollow, he whispered. The room erupted in panic. Coalition members shouted in a dozen different languages. Some ran for the exits. Others fell to their knees in despair. The Hollow was a legend that every spacefaring species knew. It was a swarm of biomechanical creatures that moved through the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. They had destroyed over 400 civilizations across millions of years. No species had ever defeated them. No weapon had ever stopped them. When the Hollow came to your world, you had two choices. Run or die. We must evacuate immediately, Admiral Scythen commanded. Prepare all ships for departure. We will retreat to safe distance and observe the destruction of Earth, Cathrell said. He was still watching the screen showing Earth. Look at the humans. The room slowly quieted. Everyone turned to see what the old scientist was pointing at. The humans were still running. They had to know about the Hollow by now. Human technology was primitive compared to the Coalition, but they had telescopes and sensors. They could see what was coming. Yet they showed no signs of fear, no signs of panic. They were not building weapons or preparing ships to escape. They were still running to their gathering points, still organizing, still moving with purpose. They have gone insane, Admiral Scythen said. The fear has broken their minds, No Kethril replied. Look at their faces. He zoomed in on a crowd of humans running through a city called Tokyo. Their faces were not twisted with fear or madness. They were focused, determined. Some of them were even smiling. They know something, Kethril said. They know something we do not. It's impossible, the Admiral snapped. What could primitive humans know about the Hollow that we do not? We have studied the swarm for thousands of years, and yet we have never defeated it, Kethril reminded her. Perhaps we have been studying the wrong things. A communication officer suddenly called out from across the room. Senior Observer, we are detecting a transmission from Earth. It appears to be a global broadcast. Let us hear it, Kethril said. Static filled the room. Then a human voice spoke. It was calm and steady. This is a message to all citizens of Earth. Project Marathon is now active. All runners report to your designated positions. Remember your training. Remember why we prepared for this day? They have never faced a species that hunts back. Today we show them what it means to be prey. The transmission ended. The Coalition members looked at each other in confusion. What is Project Marathon? Tolvex asked. Kethril did not answer. He was watching a small screen that showed a residential street somewhere in North America. A human child, no more than 8 years old, was running with her family toward a gathering point. But then she stopped. She turned and looked directly at one of the Coalition's hidden observation drones. The technology was supposed to be invisible to human detection. But this little girl stared right at it, and she smiled. She waved at the drone like she was waving at an old friend. Then she turned and continued running with her family. Kethril felt a chill run through his entire body. They know, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They have always known we were watching. That is not possible, Admiral Scythen said. Our cloaking technology is far beyond human understanding. And yet that child waved at us. Kethril turned to face the Admiral. They know about us. They know about the Hollow. And they are not afraid. He looked back at the screens, showing billions of humans still running, still gathering, still preparing for something the Coalition could not understand. The question we should be asking, Kethril said, is not why they are running. The question is, what are they running toward? And why does it make them smile while the rest of the galaxy trembles in fear? No one had an answer. The Coalition could only watch as humanity prepared for something impossible. And in the cold darkness of space, the Hollow drew closer to Earth, unaware that for the first time in its ancient existence, it was not approaching prey. It was approaching hunters. The child's wave haunted Kethril. He could not stop thinking about it. A small human girl had looked directly at an invisible drone and smiled like she was greeting a neighbor. The implications were terrifying. How long? Admiral Scythen demanded. She stood in the center of the observation room, surrounded by representatives from all 12 Coalition species. How long have the humans known about us? The communication officer pulled up historical data on the main screen. His hands were trembling. Admiral, I have analyzed all intercepted human communications from the past 50 years. The references are subtle, but they are there. Coded messages. Scientific papers with hidden meanings. They have known about our observation network for at least 5 decades. 50 years. A Gorthian delegate roared. The massive creature slammed his fist against a console. They have watched us watching them for 50 years and said nothing. Kethril stepped forward. They were waiting. Waiting for what? For this? Kethril pointed to the screen showing the Hollow's approach. They knew something was coming. Something that would require them to reveal what they know. What they have prepared. The room fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity had discovered they were being observed by advanced alien civilizations. Instead of panicking or trying to make contact, They had simply continued living their lives while secretly preparing for a threat that had not yet arrived. "Hey, this is insane," a Velthari representative said. Her silver skin rippled with anxiety. "The Hollow has destroyed 400 civilizations. Races far more advanced than humanity. What could these primitives possibly do against such a force?" As if in answer, the screen showing Earth lit up with new activity. The humans had reached their gathering points. Billions of them now stood in fields, stadiums, parks, and open spaces across the planet. They were organized in neat rows and groups. And they were doing something that made no sense. They were stretching Kethral, watched in confusion as humans bent and twisted their bodies. They touched their toes. They rolled their necks. They bounced lightly on their feet. It looked exactly like what human athletes did before a sporting competition. "What are they doing?" Tolvex asked. "They're warming up," Kethral replied. "Preparing their bodies for physical activity?" Admiral Sithin made a sound of disgust. "Physical activity? The Hollow will arrive in 6 hours. They should be building weapons, preparing defenses, not exercising." A new transmission from Earth interrupted the discussion. This time was a video broadcast that appeared on screens around the world and was picked up by coalition sensors. A human woman appeared on screen. She was old by human standards, with gray hair and deep lines on her face, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was strong. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am the director of Project Marathon. I am broadcasting this message to our friends in the Galactic Coalition who have been watching us for 300 years. The coalition members gasped. The humans were speaking directly to them. "We know you expected us to panic when the Hollow arrived. We know your history says that no species has ever survived contact with the swarm. But you have been watching us for 3 centuries, and you still do not understand what we are." Dr. Chen paused. Behind her, images appeared showing human history. Ancient hunters chasing animals across African plains, marathon runners crossing finish lines, mountain climbers reaching impossible peaks, survivors of disasters walking thousands of miles to safety. Studied our wars and called us violent. You studied our weapons and called us dangerous. But you missed the most important thing about humanity. We are not dangerous because we fight. We are dangerous because we do not stop. Images changed to show the Hollow. Massive swarms of biomechanical creatures consuming planets and stars. The Hollow has existed for millions of years because nothing has ever challenged it. Nothing has ever chased it. Nothing has ever made it feel what its victims feel. Until now. Dr. Chen leaned closer to the camera. "We have spent 50 years preparing for this moment. We have developed technology that allows human consciousness to project across space. Today, billions of humans will link their minds together, and we will do what no species has ever done." She smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator. "We are going to hunt the Hollow. We are going to chase it across the stars. And we are not going to stop until it learns what it means to be prey." The transmission ended. The observation room was silent for a long moment. Then chaos erupted. Coalition members shouted in disbelief. Some called the humans mad. Others called it suicide. A few quietly began calculating escape routes away from this sector of the galaxy. Kethral remained calm. He was still watching the screens showing Earth. The humans had finished warming up. They were now standing in their positions, eyes closed, breathing slowly and steadily. Billions of humans, perfectly synchronized, preparing for something that should have been impossible. Senior observer Admiral Sithin said quietly. She had moved to stand beside him. "Do you believe any of this is possible?" Kethral thought about everything he had learned in 200 years of watching humanity. He thought about persistence hunting, about marathons, about the human capacity to endure suffering that would kill any other species. "I believe," he said slowly, "that we are about to witness something that has never happened before in galactic history." "What is that?" "The moment when the Hollow realizes it made a mistake coming here." On the screens, the humans began to move. Not their bodies. Their bodies remained still. But something else was happening. Sensors detected a massive energy buildup across Earth. brain activity from billions of humans synchronized into a single pattern. A pulse of psychic energy erupted from the planet and shot out into space. The hollow was still hours away, but in that moment, something changed. The swarm's movement pattern shifted. Just slightly. Just barely. The leading edge of the swarm slowed down. Kethrel enhanced the sensor readings. He analyzed the data again and again, unable to believe what he was seeing. "Admiral," he said, his voice shaking. "The hollow is hesitating. Impossible. Look at the data. The swarm is slowing down. Something has made it cautious." He turned to face her. Something has made it afraid. Across the void of space, the hollow felt something it had not experienced in millions of years. It felt the attention of a predator. It felt the focus of billions of minds, all directed at one purpose, all communicating a single, terrible message. "We are coming for you." And for the first time in its ancient existence, the hollow wondered if it should turn around and run. The humans continued their preparation. Their bodies remained still, but their minds raced across space. They touched the edge of the hollow's consciousness. They let it feel their presence, their determination, their refusal to stop. The hunt had begun, and somewhere on Earth, in a stadium in Buenos Aires, a 67-year-old grandmother named Elena Vasquez opened her eyes and smiled. Her heartbeat was steady. Her breathing was calm. She had been training for this moment her entire life. "Let us run," she whispered, and billions of humans began to do what they had done for 100,000 years. They began to chase their prey. The only difference was that this time, the prey was a galaxy-spanning swarm that had never known fear. It was about to learn. Admiral Sthon had commanded fleets across 100 star systems. She had faced pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species. She had never been afraid. She was afraid now. The sensors showed something impossible. The hollow, the great swarm that had consumed 400 civilizations, was no longer advancing toward Earth. It had stopped completely. Millions of biomechanical creatures hung motionless in space, as if frozen in time. "What is happening?" the Gorthian delegate demanded. "Why has the swarm stopped?" Kethrel was studying the data with all four of his eyes. His old hands moved across the controls, pulling up readings and analysis. The hollow operates on a collective consciousness, a hive mind. Every creature in the swarm is connected to every other creature. They share thoughts, feelings, and experiences. "We know this," Admiral Sithin said impatiently. "What does it have to do with why they stopped?" "The humans are not just projecting their minds into space," Kethrel explained. "They are targeting the hive mind directly. They are forcing the hollow to feel their presence, their focus, their intent." He brought up a visual representation on the main screen. It showed Earth surrounded by a massive sphere of psychic energy. Tendrils of that energy reached out across space, touching the edge of the hollow's swarm. For millions of years, the hollow has only known one role. It has been the hunter, the predator, the thing that chases and consumes. It has no experience being prey. Kethrel's voice dropped to a whisper. "The humans are teaching it what that feels like." The Velthari representative laughed nervously. "You expect us to believe that the hollow, destroyer of worlds, is afraid of some mental projection from primitives?" "Look at the swarm," Kethrel said simply. Everyone turned to the main screen. The hollow was moving again, but not toward Earth. The leading edge of the swarm was curling back on itself. Creatures were bumping into each other, confused, directionless. The perfect coordination that made the hollow so deadly was breaking down. "They're panicking," Tolvek said in amazement. On Earth, the humans maintained their synchronized state. Bodies stood motionless in fields and stadiums across the planet. Their minds were elsewhere, reaching across the void, touching the consciousness of something ancient and terrible. Elena Vasquez stood in the Buenos Aires stadium with 40,000 other runners. Her physical body was still. Her eyes were closed, but her mind was racing across space, part of a collective will that spanned billions of people. She could feel the hollow. It was vast and cold and hungry. It had consumed countless worlds without mercy or hesitation. But now she could feel something else underneath the hunger. Fear. The hollow had never been chased before. It had never felt the attention of a predator locked onto it, refusing to look away. Every creature in the swarm was connected, which meant every creature felt the same terror simultaneously. The fear fed on itself, growing stronger with each passing moment. You think you know what fear is? Elena's thoughts joined with billions of others, becoming a single voice that echoed across space. You have caused fear, but you have never experienced it. Until now, the humans pushed harder. Their collective consciousness pressed against the hollow's hive mind like a weight crushing down. They did not attack. They did not try to destroy. They simply pursued. They followed. They refused to stop. Back on the observation station, alarms were sounding everywhere. The swarm is retreating. A sensor operator shouted. The hollow is moving away from Earth. Coalition members crowded around the screens in disbelief. For the first time in recorded history, the hollow was running away. The great swarm that had ended civilizations was fleeing from a species it had planned to consume. But the humans did not stop. Their psychic presence followed the hollow across space. Every time the swarm tried to change direction, the humans were there. Every time it tried to scatter and hide, the humans found it. There was no escape. They are not trying to scare it away, Kethro realized. They are hunting it. Truly hunting it. Admiral Scython stared at the old scientist. What do you mean? Persistence hunting. The humans did not evolve to be faster than their prey. They evolved to outlast it. Ancient humans would follow animals for days, never stopping, never resting, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Kethro pointed to the screens. They are doing the same thing now. They are going to chase the hollow until it cannot run anymore. That could take days, weeks, months even. Yes, Kethro agreed. And the humans will not stop. They never stop. The hollow's hive mind was experiencing something it could not understand. Its creatures were designed for hunting, not fleeing. Their bodies were made to pursue and consume, not to run and hide. They were burning through energy, reserves at an alarming rate, and still the humans followed. The psychic presence was everywhere. Every time a creature in the swarm looked behind, it felt the weight of billions of human minds staring back. The message was always the same. We are coming. We are not stopping. You cannot escape. Hours passed. The hollow fled faster, pushing its creatures to their limits. The swarm began to lose cohesion. Weaker creatures fell behind. The hive mind started to fracture as different parts of the swarm tried different escape routes. The humans adjusted instantly. Their collective consciousness split and reformed following every splinter of the swarm. No matter how the hollow tried to divide itself, the humans were there. Elena felt the strain. Maintaining this level of focus for so long was exhausting. Her body trembled in the Buenos Aires stadium. Sweat poured down her face. Her heart worked hard to keep up with the demands of the mental effort. Around her, other runners were struggling too. Some had already fallen, their minds retreating back to their bodies out of sheer exhaustion. Medical teams moved through the crowds, helping those who could not continue. But for every runner who fell, 1,000 others remained. Humanity had billions of people participating in Project Marathon. They had planned for losses. They had known this would be a test of endurance unlike anything in history. We trained for this, Elena reminded herself. We prepared for this moment. We do not stop. She pushed harder, and billions pushed with her. Across space, the hollow felt something it had never felt before. It felt tired. It felt drained. It felt the creeping exhaustion that came from running too. It's long without rest. And it felt the terrible knowledge that no matter how far it ran, the pursuers would still be there. The hunters had become the hunted, and the hunt was only beginning. 3 days had passed since Project Marathon began. Kethrel had not slept. He could not sleep. What he was witnessing was too important, too historic, too impossible to look away from. The hollow was dying. Not from weapons or warfare. Not from technology or tactical strikes. The great swarm that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years was dying from exhaustion. On the main screen, sensor readings showed the current state of the swarm. It had lost 40% of its creatures. Not destroyed. Simply dead. Their bodies floating in space, energy reserves completely depleted. They had run themselves to death trying to escape the relentless pursuit of human consciousness. "This is impossible," Admiral Scythen said. She had been saying variations of this for 3 days. "Nothing has ever done this to the Hollow. Nothing." "The Hollow has never faced a persistent predator," Kethrel replied. His voice was tired but filled with wonder. "Every species that fought the Hollow tried to defeat it quickly. They built weapons, gathered fleets, made their stand. And they failed because the Hollow is designed to survive direct confrontation." He brought up historical records on a side screen. "Look at these battles. The Grethics deployed antimatter weapons. The Hollow absorbed them. The Yandari created a virus to attack the hive mind. The Hollow adapted. The Sorthian Empire threw 1,000 warships at the swarm. The Hollow consumed them all. But the humans are not fighting," Tolvek said, understanding spreading across his young face. "They are just... following. Exactly. They are not trying to hurt the Hollow. They are not trying to win. They are simply refusing to stop. And the Hollow has no defense against that." On Earth, the toll was becoming visible. Of the 3 billion people who had started Project Marathon, only 2 billion remained connected. 1 billion had dropped out from exhaustion, illness, or simply reaching the limits of their mental endurance. But 2 billion was still an enormous number. 2 billion minds, all focused on one task. All refusing to give up. Alina Vasquez was still among them. Her body had lost weight she could not afford to lose. Her muscles ached from standing in one position for so long. Medical workers had attached nutrition tubes to keep her alive, pumping fluids and calories directly into her system. None of that mattered. What mattered was the hunt. She could feel the Hollow more clearly now. 3 days of constant contact had created a strange intimacy between the hunters and the hunted. She understood the swarm in ways no one had before. It was ancient. Millions of years old. It had no memory of being anything other than what it was. Consume, spread, consume again. That was its entire existence. It had never needed to evolve, never needed to change, because nothing had ever threatened it until now. The swarm's hive mind was fracturing. Different parts were sending different signals. Some wanted to turn and fight. Some wanted to keep running. Some wanted to surrender. The unity that had made the Hollow invincible was breaking apart under the pressure of constant fear. "We are almost there," Alina whispered through cracked lips. "Keep pushing. Do not stop." Across the planet, 2 billion people heard her voice in their minds. 2 billion people pushed harder. On the observation station, something unprecedented was happening. Coalition species were reaching out to Earth, offering help. "This is the Gorthian High Command," a transmission announced. "We are prepared to send supply ships to support human medical needs. Please respond." Similar messages came from a dozen other species. The Velthari offered advanced nutrition systems. The Yandari offered medical expertise. Even Admiral Sathan's own people offered support, despite their centuries of fear about human contact. The human response came from Dr. Sarah Chen. "We appreciate the offers, but we cannot stop to coordinate assistance. Not yet. We are too close." "Too close to what?" Admiral Scythen demanded. "To breaking it completely." Kethrel zoomed in on the remaining Hollow swarm. It was less than half its original size now. The creatures that remained were moving erratically, their coordination completely destroyed. The hive mind was sending contradictory commands. "Run left. No. Run right. No. Stop. No. Keep going." It was chaos. "The humans do not want to just defeat the Hollow," Kethrel said. "They want to ensure it never threatens anyone again. They want to break its will entirely." Lena felt the moment approaching. The Hollow was weakening by the hour. Its resistance was crumbling. Victory was within reach, and then she stumbled. It was not a physical stumble. Her body still stood motionless in the Buenos Aires stadium. But her mind, exhausted after 3 days of constant effort, flickered. Her focus wavered. Her heartbeat, which had been steady for so long, skipped just for a moment, but the hollow felt it. Across space, what remained of the swarm sensed the weakness. The billions of human minds that had been pressing against them suddenly felt lighter, less oppressive. More vulnerable, the hive mind made a decision. Not to keep running. Not to surrender. To fight. The hollow turned. Millions of creatures pivoted in space and began racing back toward Earth. Their energy reserves were low, but they had enough for one final charge. One final assault. If they could reach Earth, reach the physical bodies of the humans who were hunting them, they could end this. Alarms screamed across the observation station. The hollow has reversed course. A sensor operator shouted, "It is heading directly for Earth at maximum speed. Time to arrival, 12 hours. Coalition members panicked. After 3 days of watching the impossible, they had allowed themselves to hope. Now that hope was dying, Alina felt the change. She felt the hollow's hunger returning, sharpened by desperation and rage. She felt its singular focus on reaching Earth and destroying the minds that had tormented it, and she felt her own exhaustion pulling at her, threatening to drag her consciousness back into her tired body. "No," she whispered. "Not now. Not when we are so close." Around her in the stadium, other runners were struggling too. The wavering in focus had spread. More people were dropping out every minute. The collective human presence in space was weakening. Kethrel watched the data with growing horror. The humans are losing cohesion. Too many are falling out of the synchronized state. "Can they recover?" Admiral Sithan asked. "I do not know." 3 days without rest would destroy any species. The fact that they lasted this long is miraculous. But miracles have limits. On Earth, 2 billion became 1.5 billion, then 1.2 billion, then 1 billion. The human presence in space was shrinking. Well, the hollow's desperate charge brought it closer to Earth every second. Elena's heart skipped again. Her legs trembled. Medical workers rushed toward her with emergency equipment. "Do not touch me," she managed to say. "I am not finished." She reached deep inside herself, past the exhaustion, past the pain, past the limits of what any human should be able to endure. She found something there. Something that had been passed down through 100,000 years of evolution. The refusal to stop. "We are humanity," she thought, and 2 billion minds thought with her. "We do not know how to give up. We do not know how to quit. We are the species that walked out of Africa and conquered the world. We are the species that reached for the stars when we could barely leave our atmosphere. We are the species that looks at the impossible and says, 'Not today.'" The human presence in space stabilized. Then it began to grow again. The hollow was still coming. But now it was racing toward hunters who had found their second wind, and the hunt was about to enter its final stage. Alina Vasquez fell to her knees. She had been standing for 3 days straight. Her body had finally reached its absolute limit. Muscles that had been locked in position for 72 hours gave out without warning. She collapsed onto the track of the Buenos Aires stadium, her connection to the collective consciousness flickering like a dying flame. Around her, 40,000 other runners watched in horror. Alina had become the heart of Project Marathon. Her steady presence had anchored billions of minds. When she fell, the entire human network felt it. Across space, the hollow felt it too. The swarm was 8 hours from Earth. It had been fleeing, dying, breaking apart, but now it sensed opportunity. The presence that had been crushing its will for 3 days was weakening. The lead hunter was down. The hollow pushed harder. Remaining creatures burned through their last energy reserves in a desperate sprint toward Earth. They would reach the planet. They would destroy the bodies of their tormentors. They would feed on human flesh and remember this day forever as a warning to any species that dared to challenge them. On the observation station, coalition members prepared for the worst. "Contact Human Command," Admiral Sithan ordered. "Tell them we are prepared to evacuate as many humans as possible. Our ships can save millions if they start loading now." Kethrel shook his head. "They will refuse." How do you know? Because I've watched them for 200 years. Humans do not evacuate. They do not abandon their own. They will stand and fight, or they will stand and die. As if to prove his point, a transmission came from Earth. It was Dr. Sarah Chen, looking exhausted but determined. Coalition forces, we appreciate your offer of evacuation. We decline. Project Marathon will continue. We are not finished. Your lead runner has fallen. Admiral Sithin replied. Your collective is losing cohesion. The Hollow will reach Earth in 8 hours. What can you possibly do? Dr. Chen smiled. Watch. In the Buenos Aires Stadium, Alina was surrounded by medical workers. They were trying to lift her onto a stretcher. She pushed them away with trembling arms. Give me water, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. And help me stand. Senora Vasquez, your body cannot take any more. You must rest. I will rest when the Hollow is finished. Lena grabbed the arm of the nearest medical worker. Help me stand. They helped her to her feet. Her legs shook violently. Blood dripped from her nose, a sign of the tremendous mental strain she had endured. She looked like a woman who should be in a hospital bed, not standing on a running track. But she was standing. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind again. Her consciousness was weak, flickering, barely able to maintain contact with the collective, but it was enough. I am still here, she thought, to the billions who were still connected. I am still running. Run with me. Something remarkable happened then. People who had dropped out of the collective began rejoining. Exhausted runners who had been lying in recovery tents stood up and reconnected. Children who had been too tired to continue found new strength. Elderly participants who had given everything they had somehow found more to give. The human presence in space stabilized then. It surged. Not just 2 billion minds now, 3 billion, 4 billion. People who had not participated before were joining. People who had been skeptical, afraid, or simply uninvolved were adding their consciousness to the collective. The entire human species was waking up to what was at stake. The Hollow was 7 hours from Earth when it felt the change. The presence that had been pursuing it was no longer weak. It was stronger than ever. More focused, more determined. It carried a message that echoed across space with terrible clarity. You should not have turned around. The swarm tried to change course. It tried to flee again, but it was too late. The creatures had burned through their energy. Reserves in their desperate charge toward Earth. They had nothing left for escape. 6 hours from Earth, the Hollow's creatures began dying in massive numbers. Not from exhaustion this time, from surrender. The hive mind was cracking, and individual creatures were simply giving up. They stopped moving. They stopped functioning. They floated in space like dead leaves on still water. 5 hours, the swarm was half its size. 4 hours, a quarter remained. 3 hours. Thousands of creatures continued toward Earth out of pure momentum, but they were already dead. Their minds had broken. Their will had shattered. The Hollow as a collective consciousness no longer existed. 2 hours. The final creatures burned up in Earth's atmosphere like meteors. They made beautiful streaks of light across the night sky. 1 hour. Nothing remained. Of the hollow but cooling debris spreading through space, Alina Vasquez watched the light show from the Buenos Aires Stadium. Her nose was still bleeding. Her body was still trembling, but she was smiling. We did it, she whispered. Around her, 40,000 runners began to cheer. Across Earth, billions of people were doing the same. The hunt was over. The hollow was destroyed. On the observation station, it was only silence. Catherall stared at the sensor readings, showing the complete absence of the hollow. 400 civilizations had fallen to that swarm. Millions of years of galactic terror, and it had been ended by a species that refused to stop running. Admiral Sithin was the first to speak. Contact Earth. Tell them. Tell them the Coalition formally requests discussion of alliance. The message was sent. The response came quickly. The Coalition is welcome to visit Earth, but please understand that we will need some time to recover. Our people are very tired. They have been running for 3 days. Catherall laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in 200 years. 1 month later, Catherall stood on Earth for the first time, dead. He had been chosen as the official coalition ambassador to humanity. He had one request before beginning his diplomatic duties. He wanted to meet Elena Vasquez. He found her at a school in Buenos Aires. She was teaching children how to run, not psychic projection, not mental hunting, just simple physical running around a track. "You are the one who saved the galaxy," Cathrell said when she greeted him. Elena shook her head. "All of humanity saved the galaxy. I just kept running a little longer than most. Why?" "When you fell, when your body failed, why did you keep going?" Elena thought about the question for a moment, then she smiled. "'Cause that is what we do. We are human. Fall down, and we get back up. We hit our limits, and we find more. We face the impossible, and we refuse to accept it." She looked at the children running around the track. "We teach our children the same thing. Never give up. Never stop. There is always another step to take." Cathrell watched the children run. They were laughing, racing each other, completely unaware that the woman teaching them had helped destroy an ancient cosmic threat. "I watched humanity for 200 years, he said. "I thought I understood what made you dangerous. Your weapons, your aggression, your capacity for violence. And now I understand that none of those things matter. What makes humanity dangerous is this," he pointed at the running children. "The simple refusal to stop, the inability to quit, the complete rejection of defeat." Elena nodded. "We are a stubborn species. You are an impossible species." Cathrell meant it as the highest compliment he could give. That night, Cathrell submitted his final report to the coalition. The document was brief. "We watched humanity for 300 years, waiting to understand what made them dangerous. We asked the wrong question. Should have asked what made them unstoppable. The answer is simple. They do not know how to give up, do not accept defeat. When they fall, they stand again. When they reach their limits, they find more strength. When faced with the impossible, they refuse to believe it. They are not dangerous because of what they can do. They're dangerous because of what they will not stop doing." The Hollow learned this lesson too late. We should be grateful that humanity has chosen to be our friends rather than our enemies. Because if they ever decided to hunt us the way they hunted the Hollow, there would be nowhere in the galaxy far enough to hide. He ended the report with a single recommendation. Never give humanity a reason to start running toward you, because they will not stop until they catch you. When they do, you will wish the Hollow had found you first.